नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So today we shall be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 4, text 19 to 23. Today is also the very auspicious tithi of appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was known as Simha Guru, means the spiritual master who was practically like lion. Lion in the sense he had, no tolerance to hypocrisy or pseudo devotion or the inappropriate interpretations of the scriptures, like especially the philosophy of Mayavad or impersonalism.
No, this one.
He had no tolerance to all this. In fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he is famous or well known in his, tremendous preaching and opposing the views of impersonalism and people who take bhakti or process of devotional service to be very cheap, like sahajiyas. And especially from his teachings and from his wonderful and exemplary activities, it is so much to be learned that how much he had dedicated his life to remove all the pseudo principles or the principles which actually misguide people on the path of spirituality. Especially in today's day and age, when I see how the world is so much misguided, even if people are spiritually inclined. Like especially I see on social media networks, people are looking answers for spirituality. And some people who even have some genuine interest in spirituality, they happen to be misguided by so many pseudo transcendentalists or people who pose themselves to be transcendental but have actually no knowledge about how to practice spirituality. Srimad Bhagavatam, mentions that people in Kali Yuga, Kalau asmin yuge juna, manda sumanda mate, manda bhagya hi upadhrata. Prayana alpa ayusha kalau asmin yuge jana, manda asmanda matayo, manda bhagya hi upadhrata. Almost all the people in Kali Yuga are more or less manda. Manda means not very intelligent, slow in grasping the things. Most of the population is like that. And Mandabhagya, they are unfortunate, and upadrata. Upadrata means they are always prone to be misguided. So people in this age, they are very much misguided. But Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he made his mission to remove all the misunderstanding or inappropriate ideas about spirituality. Even the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, people used to think Vaishnavism was meant for some incompetent beggars who couldn't maintain themselves by taking some profession or some livelihood. They would become the beggars and they would become Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavism was considered to be, meant for people who were beggars, unintelligent, and also very uncivilized or polluted in mind. Because there were so many hypocrites in the name of Vaishnavism, they were doing all kinds of nonsensical activities. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he tried to fix all this, but he found himself incapable of distributing or making a proper organized effort to distribute Krishna consciousness. And therefore he prayed to Krishna, my dear Lord, I need a ray of your potency, a ray of Vishnu. And Krishna heard his prayers. And in the response to those prayers, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was known as Vimala Prasad, he was born. And Vimala Prasad was such an unparalleled and extraordinary child right from his birth. He memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita, all the 18 chapters, 700 shlokas, by the time he was 7 years old. And not only that, he had such amazing scholarly understanding of the scriptures. In fact, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, as he grew, he translated many of the literatures. Especially, he had a lot of interest in the astronomy and astrological, literatures. He translated and commented in Bangla the astrological treatise called Surya Siddhanta, which is the basis of all the astrological calculations. So he actually translated and commented, explained it elaborately in Bengali vernacular. And when he was still a small child, one day it so happened that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, had brought some mangoes. So the child, he picked up the mango. He said, I want to eat this. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur mildly chastised the child, saying, oh, you want to eat, but this is not yet offered to Krishna. So this is not appropriate for you to be desiring to eat without Krishna, this being offered to Krishna. Just simple statement made Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, who was just a child, he was not some grown-up adult, created such an impression in him that actually I'm an offender. I want to take the property of Krishna and enjoy for my sense gratification. So he took a vow. As a child, he took a vow that he will never eat mango in life. Prabhupada actually mentions in some of the lectures. He said, whenever we offered him mango, he said, no, I'm offended. I cannot eat mango. So there's no offense for a child, taking a mango and desiring to eat. But he was such an exalted, personality. Even in such a tender age, he took a vow that he will never eat a mango, and he followed that vow throughout his life. And in order to, establish, because when Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur especially started his missionary activities, the Smartha Brahmanas, they had, so much created confusion in the society, kind of. They would, they were hereditary Brahmanas, They would not follow any Brahmanical principle, but just because they were born in a Brahmana family, they would demand the respect and all the honor from the society. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he established that a person born in a Brahmin family, if he doesn't follow the principles of Brahmana, according to scriptural injunctions, that person is not to be regarded as Brahman. One time he actually was invited in a debate. There was a tremendous debate between the Brahmanas and Smartha Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur presented the wonderful article. He wrote an elaborate article on Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. And that article began with glorifying the Brahmanas. Even the Brahmanas who were in the assembly, they never heard such glorification of Brahmana in their entire life. He had supported it from the scriptures. He extracted all the quotes from the scriptures about the glorification of Brahmanas. So Brahmanas were so elated and happy hearing this glorification. But when he started quoting from the scriptures about the glories of devotional service and how glorious Vaishnavas are, created outraged, Brahmanas were actually very much outraged, because that clearly established the superiority of the Vaishnavism, and how a Vaishnava is much, much more superior and better than Brahmanas. Because Brahmanas is simply, people considered the tag, I'm born in a certain family, therefore I'm Brahmana. But Vaishnava is by quality, the person who actually has devotion to Krishna, who takes sincerely the principle of devotional service in his life. That person is far, far better and glorious. In fact, there is no comparison with such a person. So, when Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he actually presented that whole article, people in the assembly, the genuine people in the assembly, they were so much elated. In fact, they wanted to come and take the dust from his feet. There was a stampede, people were actually running and so, eager to take the dust from his feet. Then the policeman actually came and told Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, that there will be stampede and people could actually get injured. So you please give the dust from it. So they brought the bucket full of dust, and Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur put his feet in that, and that was distributed to people. And that's how people were actually pacified. And because of his forceful preaching and presentation of the conclusion of the scriptures without any compromise, so many people actually became inimical towards him. In fact, one of the policemen, one of the high, police officer, he came once to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sri Thakur and he told him that I have been bribed. Some people want to kill you and they came and give me bribe that we'll kill him. You don't take any action. And this policeman actually told Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur that this is something very common We do all the time. People, they pay us bribe, and if they want to do something illegal, we accept the bribe and we let them do, even including murders. But he said, I couldn't take this offer because they wanted to kill you. So just be careful. But Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur never compromised. In spite of knowing that people were actually becoming so hateful and inimical towards him because of his presenting the truth as it is, without any compromise, he still continued without any compromise to present the teachings of the Vaishnava conclusions of the scriptures. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was so much delighted when Srila Prabhupada, he wrote that beautiful poem in his glorification. On the Vyas Puja day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, Srila Prabhupada wrote that poem. And one particular stanza that attracted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur very much, where Srila Prabhupada mentioned that how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur has favored the whole world. He has benedicted the whole world by explaining the absolute truth, being a person. Absolute is sentient, thou have proved. Impersonal calamities thou have removed. So Srila Prabhupada, when he wrote this poem, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was so much delighted reading this. It was almost like, how is it that this person knows my heart? And it was only under the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur that Srila Prabhupada, he took this mission of presenting Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking language and to people who speak English. And his whole life was nothing but very much focused on executing this one instruction of his Guru Maharaj. And it was by the mercy of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur that Srila Prabhupada, he established this worldwide mission of ISKCON Society, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada always mentioned that, in fact, in one of the lectures on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's disappearance day, he mentioned to his disciples that you all American boys and girls, you have been sent. It's American and European. He said, you all American and European boys and girls, you have been sent by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. You have come to me by his mercy. So I am very much indebted to all of you. My Guru Maharaj has sent all of you to help me in executing his mission. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada never considered himself to be the doer. He was the one who actually preached this Krishna consciousness. He actually always gave credit to his spiritual master. And whatever principles he learned from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, whatever Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur wanted to establish in the form of a worldwide mission, he simply, as the obedient servant, implemented that in our ISKCON society without any identification. He simply implemented that. Especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he wanted very much to establish in Gaudiya Math the system of GBC, the Governing Body Commission. So that, because he knew that what he had done will not be possible for a single person to actually be able to guide the whole mission. So he very much wanted to set up a system where people together in cooperation carry forward the mission, the missionary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness. But after his departure, his disciples, they completely disregarded his instruction. Even in his presence, they started disregarding his instruction. And that very much displeased Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. So Srila Prabhupada simply took that instruction. And even within our ISKCON society, the administration system that he created was nothing but simply implementing the ideas and instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. So it's by his mercy that we have this ISKCON society which is flourishing and expanding day by day, helping so many conditioned souls to take to the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So on this auspicious day, we pray to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur that we may have his blessings, that we can leave aside all the ideas about hypocritical devotion and genuinely take the teachings of Gita and Bhagavatam in our life, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya very sincerely in our life, and perfect our life, becoming instrument of compassion of the whole Guru Parampara. Thank you. So I think we can get started with our Srimad Bhagavatam today. So text 19 is Chaturhotram karma shuddham prajanam ikshavedikam vidadhad yajna santatyai vedam ekam chaturvidham. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into the four in order to expand them among men. So, Veda means knowledge. The Sanskrit word Veda actually means knowledge. And formally, at least 5,000 years ago, there was only one Veda. And it was known as Yajurveda. And the four divisions of sacrifices were specifically mentioned in this Yajurveda. So, Vedavyas, the author and compiler of these Vedas, he actually could foresee that people in Kali Yuga, they will not be endowed with good memory power. Formerly, people never had any books. They used to learn Vedas simply by hearing. In fact, Srila Prabhupada gives example of there was during the British rule, so not very long ago, maybe less than 100 or 150 years ago, Prabhupada said he had heard about this case. There was a court case where a Brahmana was brought to the court as a witness of a quarrel between two people. And both the people, they were Muslims. They spoke Urdu language with each other, and this Brahman didn't know Urdu language at all. So he was brought to the court as a witness, and he repeated verbatim the language Lippi that he didn't know. He simply heard it, what they were talking. He simply repeated which person spoke what, without any knowledge of what he was speaking. Just imagine. Like sometimes we may hear Spanish words. So people speak in Spanish, especially here in California, there are a lot of people who speak Spanish. But it's, it even to understand one word, it's so difficult. Even to remember one word, it's so difficult. You say, wait, speak slowly. I can try to repeat a word after. But this Brahmana, he could not only hear, but remember the whole conversation. Verbatim, he repeated the words of the two parties, who spoke what and the other person spoke what in response, everything he repeated. So this we're talking about just 100, 150 years ago. 5,000 years ago, people had much more sharp memory. And they had much more brain substance. They could understand the things. So therefore, the Vedas were only heard. The children would hear the Vedas from the mouth of Guru and they would remember. And then they would become the teachers and teach it to further down the next generation of students. But Vyasadeva knew that people in Kali Yuga, they will become devoid of memory. Their memory will become, shrinking. The capacity of the phone increases and the capacity of our memory decreases. I remember even, 15, 20 years ago, we could remember the phone numbers of people. If somebody told the phone number, we would actually remember. But now, because of this technology, because of the phones and computers and tablets, it has become so difficult to even remember a phone number. Not only that, I see, children are becoming so much more and more, devoid of the ability to even do mathematics, basic mathematics. And if you tell them to remember the basic, paharas, or what you call tables, they say, what is the need? I have calculator. I have, the devices, the sound-enabled devices. I speak and ask question and they immediately respond. So why do I need to remember? Oh, that's the downside. So Vedvyas knew that people will become more and more, short of memory, and it will not be possible for them to learn the Vedas. So in order to preserve the Vedic knowledge, he compiled them in the form of books. And he divided the one Veda into 4 different divisions: Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. And then he also compiled the Puranas, and Itihasa like Mahabharata, Samhitas, like and Sutras, the Vedanta Sutra. So in this way, he compiled all the Vedic texts in the form of books. 5,000 years ago, nobody needed a book. There was a book called Srimad Bhagavatam, but that was a sound book. Like we have e-book nowadays, but there used to be sound book. The entire book would be learned by simply hearing and repeating back. Now it's very inconceivable. It's incomprehensible for us how that could be, how somebody could remember the whole book. But that's how people learned everything. So Puranas and Mahabharata, they were made from the related historical facts. So whatever we read in Puranas and Mahabharata, they're not some stories, or as they say, the so-called Vedic scholars, especially, they say this is mythology. It's not myth. There's no myth or speculated stories there. They are actual historical events that transpired, and they indicate the basic teachings of the Vedas, how people practice the teachings of the Vedas. So So the 18 Puranas and Mahabharata or even Ramayana. Ramayana was not compiled by Vyasdev, but all these scriptures, they are historical facts, teaching the same principles from the Vedas, how people practice these principles in their lives. Text 20. Rigyaju sama atharvakyam Vedas chatavara udritam Itihasa Puranam cha Panchamo Veda Uchate. The four divisions of the original source of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the fifth Veda. So this is nothing but self-explanatory. So Vedvyasi divided the Vedas into the four Vedas and Puranas, Itihasas. Tatra Vedadhara Pailai Samago Jaimini Kavi Vaishampayano Evaiko Nishanato Yajushamutam. After the Vedas were divided into four divisions, Paila Rishi became the professor of Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of Samaveda, and Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajurveda. Sorry. So this was a system. When a sage would compile a book, he would make one of or some of his disciples in charge of those books. Because when the Guru especially forms or compiles a book, like Srila Prabhupada, he wrote so many books, and he engaged all his disciples, man, woman, everyone, to spread the teachings, spread the books that he was translating. And this is something very crucial and important. The Vedic teachings are not simply meant to be, kept to oneself. So Vedvyas also, when he compiled, when he divided the Vedas into four, and he compiled the books, he assigned some of his disciples with each one of the sections of the Vedas. Atharvangar Angirsam Asit Sumantur Daruno Mati Muni Itihasa Puranam Pita Me Romaharshana. The Sumantu Muni, Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda. And my father, Romaharshana, was interested with the Puranas and historical records. I'm sorry. So in this way, Vedvyas assigned the different Vedas and Puranas to different disciples. Especially Romaharshana is mentioned here, who's the father of Sutta Goswami, because Sutta Goswami is speaking all this Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya. So he says, my father Romaharshana was interested with the Puranas and historical instances. In the text 23, the Etarishayo Vedam Swam Vyasanam Anekada Shishya Parishishya Stat Shishya Vedaste Shakino Bhavan. All these learned scholars in their turn rendered their interested Vedas into their many disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples, and thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being. So even till this day, there are families, especially the traditional Brahmana families, who teach their children one particular section of the Vedas or one particular Veda only. So this is the system of passing the information in parampara system, and this is how Vedavyas he actually taught the different Vedas to his different disciples. The original source of knowledge is called Vedas, and there are no branches of knowledge, either mundane or transcendental, which are not rooted in Vedas. In fact, any branch of knowledge, even in modern science, they may have what do you call taken the credit, especially with the modern technology and so-called scientific discoveries. They take credit that we have done this or we have created it. But actually, the science of or even the technological things that we see nowadays, there are much more sophisticated technologies available in the lower planetary systems, where the greatest technician, his name is Mayadana, he resides in the lower planetary system. And whenever the demons want to rule this world, sometimes they get trained under this Mayadana, and they come to this earth and they leave the technological knowledge behind. So whatever advancement one may have in this world in knowledge, it has its roots in the Vedas. Say, for example, we may think that, airplanes, the modern aircraft that we have, so that is something, the invention of the modern science. But actually speaking, if you actually analyze this whole advancement of airplanes or Vimanika Shastra is actually rooted in the knowledge of Raja Harishchandra. He had actually written a book called Vimanika Shastra. Vimanika Shastra is a scripture which has detailed descriptions of how to manufacture the Vimanas or aircrafts. Here we have Vimanas which run on the fossil fuel or the oil. But in lower regions of the creation, these Mayadana and all the demonic followers of Mayadana, they have airplanes that run on water. So Raja Harishchandra, he actually gave the design of an airplane which actually runs on water. And water is available anywhere. If you're flying over an ocean, if you're low at the fuel, just go and take some water and it runs on the water. So it may be a very revolutionary idea, but all this knowledge is there in the Vedas. It is not something, any branch of knowledge that exists. It actually has its roots in the Vedas. People think nowadays we have so much technology and medical field especially, we have so much sophisticated medical instruments that we can do surgeries, we can transplant the heart. But if you read the Itihasas like Mahabharata and Puranas, they indicate that people in the past were much, much more sophisticated and advanced in medical technology. Especially when you read in Mahabharata, we read about Gandhari, for example. Gandhari, when she got upset, when she was pregnant, she got very upset when Kunti gave birth to a son before her. So she became so upset that she hit her own belly. She was also pregnant, so she hit her belly very hard. And the child in the womb, he died. And he actually, only a lump of flesh was born. And Vedvyas, he actually, that lump of flesh was divided into 100 pieces. And he deposited those 100 pieces in the pots of ghee, oil or ghee pots. And that's how all the 100 Kauravas were born. They were actually created from the flesh, small piece of flesh, which was kind of a miscarriage for Gandhari. And there were 100 children. So we might be proud, test tube babies and so many, technology that they use to have the child nowadays. But it is not really wonderful. People in the past were much, much more sophisticated. And all this is there in the Vedas. Vedic knowledge has every field of knowledge inculcated in it. So Vedic knowledge was broken into different branches and sub-branches, and different disciples of Srila Vyasadeva. They took the charge of those knowledge, branches of the Vedas. So no one therefore can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas. No one can actually say that they have the knowledge because Paravarasya Abodha Jata. Everyone in this world is actually Abodha Jata, born in ignorance. Nobody is born with knowledge. So whatever knowledge we imbibe from learning from the Vedas. Nowadays, modern universities, but they have also, stolen the knowledge from the Vedas. There are people, unfortunately, in the modern times, all the, so-called the leaders who actually lead the field of knowledge, the scientists, philosophers, they all have stolen the knowledge from the Vedas, but they don't give any credit to the Vedas. But ancient times, the sages were not like that. They would give proper credit to the Vedas. So this is the sum and substance of these few verses that we discussed. I think we'll stop here. If anyone has any